Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North, fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweet, sweet Mariners, baby.
The Mariners are celebrating their 50th year of existence this upcoming year. And in doing so, they've got a lot of big time promos coming out. And then they also came out with a voting on the top 50 Mariners of all time. So we took a look at their list that they had of all of these players, took all the people that met their criteria, which are as follows. They got to meet at least one of these, played at least 4 or more years in Seattle, had one or more All Star appearances, leads or is near the top of a Mariners statistical category, or part of an iconic moment. I guess that one's up to interpretation. So,
There's a couple I see on here that are iconic moments.
yeah, we'll see how they go. But when with all this being said, we kind of went through and we're going to have a multi-part series. It's going to be a 4-part series on breaking down Kicking It with Coach Red's podcast top 50 Mariners of all time. And in this episode, we're going to give you 50 through 31. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about us. If you're looking for a tour guide on your trip down memory lane, there's one guy that's going to be at the front of that tour bus pointing out all the fancy stops along the way. And that's me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy that's also going to be on that bus, but is really going to be focusing on, 2015 and on, I would say.
2012-ish.
Oh, 2012. If you're looking for Mariners Insight from 2012 and on, boy, have we got the guy for you. It's Cain.
Yep, I'm Kane. You can find me over on Twitter. Kane2406. TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow the boss. Do it, freaking do it.
I
And
will.
also to kind of put my claim on that, you and Dad cared about the Mariners. I played a lot of video games growing up, so I was more into that. And then I started to care about the Mariners. So I know a little bit from the 90s from you and Dad, Ichiro, and some of the people from the 2001 and 3, like 2 and 3 squad, and then the Robinson Cano era.
Okay. Good to know.
To
Now
now, I
everyone else
suppose.
knows. So
Sure.
I will say that in putting this list together, we're kind of looking at some of these guys' totality with the Mariners organization. There's some guys that we're looking at where they might have started or ended their career with the Mariners and kind of looked at some of their outside stuff a little bit that could have factored into some of their rankings, right? And there are going to be some homegrown favorites due to our affinity with the Mariners that might not make some people's top 50, but that's what we're here for. This is our list, and if you don't like it, then make one or tell us about it over on social media. But we're going to start off at number 50, which is a guy that was 100% going to make this list for me and was always going to be at number 50.
Yeah,
One
because didn't he retire? No.
Nope, his last stop was not with the Mariners, but at number 50, we have Gaylord Perry. Gaylord Perry played 1.5 years with the Mariners. During his time there, he had a 2.9 WAR. He went 13 and 22, but he did collect his 300th win while pitching for the Mariners.
Yeah, because wasn't he a long time Cleveland pitcher?
He pitched around the league. He was in the league for a long time. And as the game of baseball has progressed, the likelihood of seeing 300 game winners has really just diminished like crazy. So to have one that accomplished that feat while on the Mariners, it's something special and something for the record book. So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted Gaylord Perry, even though most of that heavy lifting was done outside of the Mariners.
Fair, fair.
Speaking of fan favorites, clocking in at number 49 is my boy, Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore played 6.5 seasons with the Mariners, one of those seasons being the COVID shortened year. 7.2 war over his time here, 205 batting average, 61 homers, 116 stolen bags. He did have one gold glove as a
Yep.
utility player in 2024. And
Boy, was he
he
just full of moments.
and
Full of moments.
that's what it was. When you look at a guy, his ability to play multiple positions, um, surged a little bit during the 2022 season.
Yep.
Uh,
Wasn't that when he hit the grand slam against Houston?
that was the big moment that really got me on the Dylan Moore train. He also caught the last recorded out in Felix's last appearance in left field. His ability to play multiple positions, the longevity of him at a utility position. And there were point in times where you thought he was really going to break out. It never fully happened, but the defensive gems and the pops offensively and just the sheer amount of stolen bases playing in a limited playing time warranted him, especially with the grand slam on Houston, was enough to have him sprinkle on this list for me.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Dylan Moore was gonna make this list. My whole thought was, where was he gonna be on the list?
He's going to be pretty low in the
Yeah.
totality of
I
Mariners.
yeah, I do love the next guy on the list.
This is a guy that was potentially not going to make the list. And I will say, we talked about me being a longer fan of the Mariners, but my fandom really kind of goes back to 95. And yes, I do know some of the big names prior to that. So some of the guys that I looked at that were prior to 95 took a little bit more research. And there were some guys that I've known the names of that I
Mhm.
originally put as a potential for the list. And some of those guys got bumped off due to me not knowing their iconic moments, right? And not seeing the statistical value that goes into them at with their time as a Mariner. But this was a guy, Franklin Gutierrez, played 7 years with Seattle, 13 war, 257 average, 74 homers, 268 RBIs. He was a one time gold glove winner in center field and had the nickname or moniker of death to flying things. The other thing that really led into this, if you have a very cool nickname in regards that was basically just with the Mariners, there was a very good chance that you were going to make this list. There was a guy that just got bumped off, and that was David Ardsma, the DA. But he did not make the list. Franklin Gutierrez did, and was kind of that next center fielder because you went from Griffey to Cameron, and then it was to Franklin Gutierrez.
And the idea of Franklin Gutierrez was this just absolute freak out in center field and could just mash right. But the biggest thing with Goody's career is the injury bug, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like someone will talk about way later in the parts, but um, he was so good when healthy, arguably the best player on the field. And I remember when he was diving back to first and got caught in the jaw and broke his jaw out
Yeah,
for the rest of the year, right? Like,
yeah, he did get hit with the injury bug, and then as his time went on, the bat kind of waned. But in the early years, Franklin Gutierrez coming over from Cleveland, you thought that he was going to be the next best Mariner center fielder that we were accustomed to seeing.
Yes,
And I think he deserves his flowers. All of
that's
these
fair.
guys do, which especially the next guy, because I think that he was undervalued for his time here. And it's Ty France clocking in at number 47.
Viva
Played
la
4.5 years
France.
with the Mariners, 8.3 WAR, batted 266, had 110 doubles, 258 RBIs, one time All Star. I said he should have won a Gold Glove because he had a 1,000% fielding percentage. He finally wins it this year with the Twins slash Toronto, even though he
Yeah.
really wasn't playing much. But the other thing is, Ty France was a big time fan favorite. There were so many giveaways. His ability to help bridge the gap to where the Mariners are now. This guy was hitting in the middle of the order and was not a power hitter. And he had his moments like anytime they played the Kansas City Royals. I believe there was one series where he batted damn near 600, had four homers and like 16 RBIs on the weekend. The one
Mhm.
thing about Ty France that also hit him was the injuries. He was a hit
The
by pitch
wrist.
magnet, and the wrist, multiple hits in the wrist that I think ultimately did in his time with Seattle. But there were so many moments with Ty France that
Mhm.
got you excited and was a key contributor on the build up to the Mariners making it back to the playoffs and then to where they're at now.
Yep, I agree. And as much as, you know, some of the later parts of Ty France's career here it infuriated me. He was a fantastic Mariner. Like, always said what's up to fans. Genuine, nice dude. There's not a lot of those in the world, and Ty France is one of them.
The next guy is one that most people are not going to put on their list. And I thought
That's
this was a
fair.
nice
I
sweet
love
spot
this
for him.
one.
Clocking in at number 46 is Ryan Roland Smith. Played
Hyping, baby.
played 4 years with the Mariners. He only had a .9 WAR. He went 12-17. Uh, like you said, cool nickname of the hyphen with the hyphenated last name. But his emergence as a broadcaster for the Mariners really put it over the top. He
Yes.
brings a unique perspective coming from Australia originally and working his way to the big leagues from there. And I think that having a pitcher, he is just an awesome color guy. And him
Awesome,
in
dude.
conjunction with Aaron Goldsmith, those two play so well off one another that it's broadcasting gold. That is my favorite combo, even when you had the likes of Dave Sims and Blau and Goldsmith and Valley and all these other guys. I think that Ryan Roland Smith and Goldie are my favorite combo out
They're
of the
they're
bunch.
the best, dude. It's such a fun time when they're in the booth. And I appreciate him making lists. I did think that he was gonna make the list due to him being an announcer and being around the team as much as he is. You
Yeah, and
know,
that's part of the totality of their time with the Mariners organization.
yeah,
Part of my
yeah.
list here.
Great job, Hive. Let's go.
All right, clocking in at number 45 is another announcer, former player. It's Mike Blowers. Played 6 years with Seattle, 5.9 WAR, 270 average, had 231 RBIs with the Mariners. And where he really came up big was in 95. He had 23 homers that year, one of his better seasons. And when you have some longevity like he did and you have a big year in conjunction with the limited playoff appearances the Mariners have, it makes them stick out. Mike Blowers, I feel he was a long time color guy for the Mariners. fortunately, there were some health things that made him step away. I didn't always love Mike Blowers. I think Dave Sims led him into begging for
Bad.
home runs and into some
Yeah.
bad takes, but the longevity that Mike Blowers had in the league, along with his longevity in the broadcast booth. And there were a lot of times where I really liked Mike Blowers. I thought Mike Blowers
Agreed.
was a better broadcaster when he was in the booth with Aaron Goldsmith. I think Goldie brings out the best of everybody.
I
But
agree.
with his contributions to that 95 team at a spot where you look at the star-studded cast, it's very easy to look over Mike Blowers and his contributions that he had in
Mhm.
95.
Great. I appreciate Mike Flowers being on this list. I really do.
All right, the next guy we have is Norm Charlton. Do you even know who Norm Charlton is?
I don't.
Oh man, he
I
played with
don't.
Seattle for 4.5 years, 2.1 WAR. He had 67 Ks or 67 saves, 282 Ks. Reliever, closer, Stormin Norman Charlton, and
It's a great name. Let me tell
his
you.
his big year. He did have some injury stuff, but in 95, pitched in 30 games, had a 1.51 ERA. When you're talking about that bullpen, Norm Charlton was a scary ask in the batter's box. He didn't have necessarily the longevity, the WAR, the stats that go along with that. A guy that I said that just did not make this list was David Ardsma, who played 2 years with the Mariners but had 69 saves. And you're looking at 67 over 4.5. Wasn't always in that closer role, but the golden locks out of the back that were nice and semi perm, dude. He was a scary at bat, especially in 95. People did not want to see Norm Charlton up on the bump. All right. Next guy we have clocking in at 43 is Dave Henderson. I believe he won a World Series MVP with the A's. Was a guy that started off his career in Seattle, played 5.5 years with them, 7.7 WAR. Was a guy that is in the 300 home run club, had 79 with Seattle and 271 RBIs. Known as Hendo, there's so many people that have a strong affinity towards him, and I thought that he deserved a spot on this list. But with him starting off his career and him having some bigger and better times outside of the Mariners, primarily with the Oakland Athletics, I wanted to make sure that he was represented. But for me, before my time, probably doesn't get as much respect from me that he may deserve. But I thought that 43 would be a good landing spot for him. And I played with his son in college.
Yep. There it is.
I did. All right. Clocking in at 42 is Arthur Rhodes. Arthur Rhodes played a total of 4.5 years with the Mariners, 6.7 WAR, 3.05 ERA, 28-16 record. He had 315 strikeouts to only 85 walks.
It's pretty efficient.
Super efficient. And like we said, looking at guys in playoff years and what they were able to do really balloons Arthur Rhodes onto this list. Not a closer in any regards. Power lefty arm, devastating slider. 2001, he had a 1.72 ERA. He was 8-0 on the year. He had 83 Ks and 68 innings. He was part of an absolutely filthy bullpen because that 2001 team could slug with anyone, but they had a cast of starters who some of them were extremely good. Some of them outplayed their baseball card that whole year, but that bullpen day in, day out was so tough to go against. And Arthur Rhodes was definitely one of those guys.
Don't remember much from that year. I was 7 years old. I just remember Ichiro.
Congrats. Well, we're not talking about Ichiro. We're going to go
I'm
to
aware.
41, which is JP Crawford. And
I Love JP Crawford.
JP Crawford is sitting at 7 years and counting with the Mariners. This the WAR number stuck out to me. 21 WAR so far with the Mariners.
It's insane.
Um 250 average, 326 RBIs. I think he's still the captain of this team, and he was kind of the figurehead after you saw the retirement of Kyle Seager, when you saw Mitch Haniger leave. You had a relatively young team, and guys gravitate and really cling to JP Crawford. He also has a gold glove. And although his defensive metrics get hammered at times, I feel like he still has a flair for the dramatic in the field. And at points in time, usually at the beginning of the year, he's a guy that starts hot, and he's usually outwarring much bigger name shortstops
Mhm.
during the first half of the season. And he's a guy that has been an integral piece to their last two playoff appearances, and especially the second one being more of a leader of the team. And I thought that
Yeah,
he definitely needs to make this team. And plus, JP Crawford was the initial piece of that next phase when they decided to rebuild. JP Crawford was one of the first and integral pieces, and he's still here today.
yeah. This is a guy that I thought should be higher. In my opinion, JP Crawford has just had moment after moment after moment for me, and just kind of the beating heart and soul of the team, right? And it's kind of been that way the last 5 years. So JP Crawford has meant a lot to this team. I mean, this year alone, I feel like he just delivered when he needed to, and just love to have him in the top 50.
Yeah, and he's always got that flair for the dramatic. But when you look at the totality and some of the extended slumps that you've seen from him,
Mhm.
and him bouncing back
Injury.
between top of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup, I think that 41's a nice landing spot
That's
for him.
fair. That's fair.
All right, the next player we have is Mark Langston. He played with Seattle for 5.5 years, 19.2 WAR. He was 74 and 67 on the bump, 1,078 Ks over his time with the Mariners.
It's a lot.
He's a four-time All-Star, only one of those coming with the Mariners, though. And this was your ace of the staff before your Randy Johnson era. So it's a guy that is still, I think he's part of the Angels broadcast, but he has come back and he's thrown out some first pitches, and was a guy that was a very solid piece for the Mariners for his 5.5 years that he was there. Ace, it was the ace. And spoiler alert, if you were an ace at points in time and you put up very good numbers, there's a good chance that you made the list.
Yeah, that's
All
fair.
right. Clocking in at 39 is Joey Cora. Played 3.5 years with the Mariners, 6.4 WAR, batted 293. Over those 3.5 years, he had 600 hits. The reason I wanted to include Joey Cora, great defensively for the Mariners, was a key component of that 95 team. One thing that people forget about is his home run in game 5 against the Yankees. Came in, I believe it was the 6th or 7th inning. Joey Cora was not a power hitter. Joey Cora had 30 career home runs.
Mhm.
Joey Cora belted a 2-run home run against the Yankees. Without that home run, you don't have the double. You don't.
Mhm.
And for his time there, in the formidable years of the Mariners, a 293 average. Come on, 600 hits over 3.5 years.
I
That's
mean,
a
the
pretty
kid,
good stint.
That's true. The Kingdom also helped a lot of dudes out.
But Joey Cora is definitely a guy, even though he only spent 3.5 years with the Mariners, even though he was before your time, you think
Mhm.
of Joey Cora as a Mariner.
I just remember him from the double because Niehaus says his name on the call.
And Joey Cora was the king at like a bunt and then sliding into first, avoiding avoiding a guy trying to tag him. It was great. It's just a nice, gritty player. All right, the next guy clocking in at 38, we've got Tino Martinez. One of the bigger names on this list started his career with the Mariners. Played 6 seasons with the Mariners, 7.7 WAR. He had 88 home runs, 106 doubles, 312 RBIs, batted 265 in his time with the Mariners. His big year was 95, 293 average, 31 homers, 111 RBIs that year. He was a two-time All-Star, one with Seattle, and he's probably remembered most for his him locking down first base when the Yankees went on their big time run in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
But Tino Martinez with the Mariners that last year really catapulted him to the Yankees, but it was really part of that refuse to lose mentality and hitting 31 yayas with 111 RBIs with the guys that were on that team was something that was needed to help propel them into the playoffs that year.
Right, right. Yeah, no, my coworker talks about Tino a lot from back then. So
Well, and the big thing is in some of this, I'm looking at some of the totality stuff a little bit, right? Multiple time World Series champ, not with the Mariners, but still want to factor in their Mariners time.
yeah, 6 years respectable numbers get you there.
Clocking in at number 37, we have Omar Vizquel. Played 5 years with the Mariners. He had a 10.3 WAR. He batted 252. He had 18 triples. But Omar Vizquel was a magician with the glove. One of the best defensive shortstops of all time. Ended up changing to third later in his career on other teams. He had a total of 11 gold gloves. One of those came with Seattle. And one of my favorite memories is in the Chris Bosio no hitter. There's a two or three chopper that goes over the mound, and Omar Vizquel snatches it bare hand out of the air in one fluid motion, throws to first, beating the runner by step and a half, maybe even a half step to close out a no. What that guy could do with the glove was second to none. And I know that there are a lot of guys. We've already talked about Dylan Moore. We've already talked about Franklin Gutierrez. There's some other guys we're going to talk about that have gold gloves, that have won gold gloves. Defensive plays in baseball are just awesome. And when you have a guy that night in, night out can put something on the highlight reel and do it for as long as he was able to, Omar Vizquel, my favorite defensive shortstop of all time.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
making the list.
that tracks.
All right. At number 36, we have JJ Putz. Played 6 years with the Mariners, 8.4 WAR, 22 and 15 record, a 307 ERA, and 101 saves for the Mariners. Also had a 3-1 strikeout to walk ratio and was an all star in 2007 for the Mariners.
Yeah, that was a weird time for the Mariners.
It was the weird time, right? And JJ Putz was pretty nails when you
Yeah.
look at it for the time. At this point in time, you started to see the offenses start to surge back up again. And for him to have a 307 ERA over the course of 6 total years out of a bullpen where this was the time when the Mariners weren't scoring a lot of runs. And to compile, he wasn't always the closer. You could tell that by the 22-15 record. But to compile 101 saves for a team that was not the best,
It's pretty impressive.
it is impressive. All right, the next guy we've got clocking in at 35 is Jeff Nelson. Jeff Nelson played a total of 7.5 years with the Mariners, 8.3 WAR, 3.26 ERA, 334 Ks. He was part of the 95. Then he went to the Yankees, then came back and was part of the 01 bullpens. So two
Okay.
two of the best years. In 95, he had a 2.17 ERA, and in 01, when he was later on in his career, had a 2.76 ERA. In those years, this was a guy where him and Arthur Rhodes in 01, those two would go back to back innings, and it was so fun to watch them as a reliever pair. It's like if you're looking at today's reliever groups, that's like when you were going Mooney when he was the setup guy and Brash and Mooney when Paul Sewald was closing out
Yeah.
games, right? Like those two were so fun. And Jeff Nelson did it at such high level. He was a very sought after reliever, pitched for his big, more notable years, was with the Mariners and was with the Yankees. So he was a guy that was never a closer, but the Mariners at points in time had so many guys that were just so clutch in that middle to late relief. And
Mhm.
7.5 years with the Mariners on 2 stints. Like, yeah, give me some Jeff Nelson. All right. Clocking in
Ah,
at number 34, we've got Marco Gonzalez. Marco Gonzalez, 6.5 years with the Mariners, 8.4 WAR, 61-47 with a 4.08 ERA, 631 Ks over his time with the Mariners when he was not a strikeout guy. And I said he was an ace for multiple years. There were some years that
yes.
he struggled with injuries. He was an ace by default because the Mariners didn't have one. But when they needed him most, especially the
Always
year
gave you
after Felix,
six.
he acted like it.
Yeah. Always gave you six.
Dude, Mr. Consistent. He was an inning eater. And another guy that I think helped bridge the rebuild to the playoffs.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that, like I said, there's going to be some ace type guys. And I think his longevity with the team. And when you really look at 2021, then going into 2022 gets bumped down in the rotation, but starts off 2021 as the ace, has one of his best years. It's,
Mhm.
you know, oh God, him and Chris
Yeah.
flexing their way to getting the Mariners within one game of the playoffs, and Marco
I
was so key within that.
I will say this, dude. Like a dialed in Marco Gonzalez was nasty.
And he
To get
wasn't
that
gonna,
sweet stuff as the lefty. Like,
and he wouldn't get you the strikeouts.
yeah.
He was probably the closest pitcher to Jamie Moyer in the starting
Mhm.
rotation that the Mariners had. And Jamie Moyer was never the ace. And granted, Marco had a few more ticks on the old fastball, but the way that he was able to get people out and go deep into games was not
Mhm.
something that you typically saw even at that point in Major League Baseball. You saw guys that were getting pulled in the fifth and the sixth. You
Oh,
could almost
Scott,
count on
Scott
Marco
Service
getting
left him
you
out
six
there.
every time and multiple times getting you into the seventh and eighth to get to your bullpen that at points in time during that point was
We're
not
very
great.
good. No, no, they were not.
All right. We're going to go to number 33, and that is John Olerud. Played with Seattle for 4.5 years, 17.1 WAR, 285 average, 164 doubles, 405 RBIs. He was a two-time All-Star in his career, one of those in Seattle. '01 was his big year. Batted 302, 21 homers, 32 doubles, 95 RBIs, and he was a three-time Gold Glover with the Mariners at
Yep.
first base.
Yep. Good old helmet guy.
John Olerud was was from the state of Washington. He went to WSU. He pitched and played first at WSU, was drafted by Toronto, and played in zero minor league games. He was a guy that shot straight, just a professional baseball player. And
Sure.
high average guy, had a little bit of power in him, and was a pretty damn good first baseman. And
Mhm.
like when you point out those 302 average, 21 homers, 32 doubles, 95 RBIs in '01, this guy was an all-star in '01, just like
Mhm.
seven other Mariners were that year because that team was otherworldly. And I think with John Olerud, if you had more time on the Mariners, especially earlier in his career, this is a guy that would have been a lot higher on the list. Because once we get past here, there's maybe a handful of guys that spent the same amount of time, maybe a little bit longer, but are Hall of Famers that are going to make their way higher on this
Yeah.
list. But yeah, if John Olerud had 7.5 years and was clocking at a 24 war for the Mariners, he's coming up higher on this list.
Yeah.
All right. At number 32, you have Hisashi Iwakuma. Played all of his 6 years in the major league for the Mariners, 17 war, 63 and 39, 342 ERA, was an all star in 2013. And he also happened to throw no hitter.
Maybe. That's the
No,
Kuma Bear, right?
yeah, it was a no hitter. Wrote down perfect game, but it was a no hitter.
Yeah. I mean, the dude was like clockwork from what I remember.
The funny thing was, is when he first came to the Mariners, it was a highly touted Japanese signing, and then touted as a starter, and then was sporadically used out of the bullpen when he first started with the Mariners.
Hmm.
Kind of worked a little bit along relief, and then later in that year had some injuries to the starting staff. So then he came into the starting staff and never really relinquished anything else. And he was the number two behind Felix. This was a guy that I think that if he had a little bit more time or started a little bit earlier, even in looking this, I was like, I think Sashi Iwakuma could have even been a little bit higher on this list for me.
Sure, sure should have been.
But he was a guy that helped bridge a gap and was one of the fun guys to watch when he was on the bump, when it wasn't necessarily fun to watch the Mariners game in, game out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right, clocking in at 31, got
Disrespectful.
James Paxton. This is
Disrespectful.
disrespectful.
Should have been a little higher. And I will tell you why when we get through this.
James Paxton played 7 years with Seattle. He had a 10.7 war, was 41 and 26 with the 342 ERA. He had 619 Ks with the Mariners and had a no hitter in Toronto on his
That's
native land of Canada.
that's why I thought he would have been higher on this list because of how much we both despise Blue Jays.
Also, he had a cool nickname, the Big Maple. But when
Yeah,
looking, I feel like James Paxton, he had the better stuff compared
yeah,
because if you really look at it, he had a year longer with the Mariners, but a lower war, less wins than Hisashi Wakuma. But different kind of pitchers, right? Sashi Wakuma was a guy that got deeper into games.
Mhm.
James Paxton wasn't usually that guy, and he dealt with a lot of injuries. He had a longer career in Major League Baseball and got some big contracts, pitched for Boston, pitched for the Dodgers, pitched for the Yankees. So that's why he went slightly above Hisashi Iwakuma, even though if he wouldn't have thrown the no hitter, Iwakuma has taken his spot.
That's
But
fair.
you also had the eagle landing on his shoulder during the national anthem. Like,
Awesome.
I feel like you just had more memorable moments with James Paxton as a Mariner. And that's why he was an ace of this staff. He was a
Mhm.
guy at the top of the rotation. He had big stuff. This is a guy that came from independent ball. And when you really look at the totality of the Mariners, right? The Mariners, for better or for worse, with them only making the playoffs a handful of times,
Mhm.
you've got to have those moments and those stories to really grip you to the team. And that was James Paxton through and through. This is a guy playing indie ball, ends up working his way up. He's got a live fastball from the left side, big, clunky. You did not want to see a ball hit up the middle with a runner on first and him snag it because I did not know if the ball was going to make it to second base. That guy could throw a ball 60 feet, 6 inches. And outside of that, I was a little scared. But you just had so many moments. And that's
I
kind of as we get
love James
further and
Paxton.
further down this list. And, the next iteration of this will be 30 through 21. And then you'll have 20 through 11. And then you'll have our top 10. But as we go along, you're going to get more stories, more moments, better statistical stuff. You're going to have some Hall of Famers that
Yeah.
sprinkle in. And I think it's awesome what the Mariners are doing and highlighting that 50th year. I think that coming off of their longest or deepest playoff run, what they've done with Josh Naylor, who unfortunately did not make this list the half season, he's not qualifying yet. But I think
Hey,
that he will
next time he
creep.
makes a list, next time we make a list.
Yeah, once we get to 75 and we're old and decrepit and still trying to podcast with the YouTube's crowds,
Sure.
probably be something different. But this is a fun exercise to do. It's fun to highlight the guys
Yeah.
uh, that have helped formulate 50 years of fandom. And
Mhm.
it's even talk with you, later in, but the amount of buy-in by people that have rooted for the Mariners for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years, 40, even 50 years, their connection to the team is so great. And it's not just because of the wins and the losses and the locality of it, which all of that will play into it. But it's the players that make that special. And
Yep.
if we can take some time to highlight some of those players, some of them more in depth than others, admittedly, but to do that and express what these guys have meant to us and our fandom for this team, I think is a fun exercise for us to do. And I hope that you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. They'll get a little bit more insight with this guy next episode because, these are all more people that I know because I am only 31. So,
And, we could have some more insight from some people we could get to know
sure.
over on social media. You can find me, your boy, Coach Red, on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
You can find me over on Twitter, K2406, TikTok, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at CoachRedPod. Pause. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.